I would like to say that when I checked my first Marie Kondo book out of the library in college, that it was like for the right reasons. But honestly, I think I was just intrigued. There was like a social movement. I loved the minimalist aesthetic. I had read about stuff online, and I knew Marie Kondo was the person to go to and read about if I really wanted to get serious about minimalism and decluttering and things like that. And while I wouldn't consider Marie Kondo like my favorite minimalism decluttering voice anymore, because I've read more and learned more, I do feel like I'm so grateful that she was so famous and that I liked the aesthetic, because without that push, I don't think I ever would have considered going into minimalism. And I think that minimalism is actually where all of this started, where the simple living and the slow living and the trying to enjoy the life that I have and not just go like more and more and more. I think that's where it started, that seed of the idea. And so I'm really grateful that minimalism has been popular, is still popular. And so today, as somebody who has been practicing it for, oh goodness, probably close to 10 years, to the best of my ability, which is not perfectly, but to the best of my ability, I thought it would be a really cool idea today to kind of go through some of the things that I've learned or ideas that I've embraced along my minimalism journey. And the first thing is actually what I was just talking about. It's that minimalism is more than an aesthetic. It's about being free of the things that you don't need in your life, because those things take up energy and physical space and mental space. And I love that because, like, I will tell you point blank, I love a very calming, decorative style. I love like a cream wall or a nice light gray. But I also love color. Maybe the minimalist aesthetic makes me feel peaceful. Decorating it with colors and things that I love makes me feel happy. And I don't think that there's a right and a wrong way to decorate your house. I think that that's one of the beauties of being able to, make a space your own. But I do like that I can embrace the minimalist mindset without feeling like a failure because I have, colorful art, or I've painted my walls blue, or, I leave books and blankets and my dog's toys scattered around the room. I think that my personal vibe these days is more cozy. I've talked about hygge on this channel before, and I really do like making my home inviting and cozy. And I love that I can do that and still keep an eye on my possessions and be free of the things that are not helping me. The second thing that I've learned, and this is actually a quote that I heard on a podcast, so I'm going to have to look up who it was from, but it's that clutter is delayed decision making. And I love that phrase because so often that is the case for me. And it might be the case for you too, where when you have things that are truly clutter, and to be fair, I don't consider like a book that I'm reading set where it doesn't belong. I don't really consider that clutter because I'm going to come back to it and read it like I'm in the middle of it. And so I'm making it convenient for myself to access it. So that might be a difference of opinion that you and I share. We'll have to see. But when I truly have clutter, like I have multiple books that I am not reading, have not been reading for months, and I just set them there because I was like, oh, maybe if I look at these, I will read them. That's delayed decision making. If I have mail that I haven't taken care of, or just really anything that I'm leaving out because I don't know what to do with it, it's delayed decision making. I'm trying to decide where to put it, whether or not to get rid of it. And if I can muster up the willpower and really think about how I want my space to be and use that as my vision for making those decisions, I am going to be so much better off. And I also think that this really helps because if I think of it as delayed decision making, I am not thinking of it as like a personal failure, which I think can also be the case, especially if you're like me and you come either from like a background where people feel bad about clutter and talk about it like it's a really bad and shameful thing all the time. And or if you drunk the minimalism juice and you think that you should just have a perfectly clean and tidy house all of the time. And that takes me to the third thing that my journey with minimalism has taught me, and it's that perfectionism is the enemy. I think I got into minimalism for fairly perfectionistic reasons. I wanted to have a perfectly tidy space all of the time. And I wanted to have like really clean and chic look to my things. I wanted to be able to always find everything that I was looking for. And while those are benefits of minimalism, like your house is going to look better if it's not overstuffed with things. And, you will be able to find things if you have fewer things to keep track of and everything has a home. The sort of thinking that like I wasn't a minimalist or I wasn't doing minimalism correctly if I lost something sometimes, or my house or my room or whatever got a little bit messy, that became really discouraging for me. I would think, well, I do really admire minimalists, but I don't know if I consider myself one because I do, lose things all of the time, or, I do have messes. I can be a little bit of a messy person. And what I've learned as, I've done a lot of work personally on perfectionism in other areas of my life is that was perfectionism talking. And that was actually the enemy. It was good that my pursuit of a better life, and I think you can consider my perfectionism as a driving factor. It was good that it got me to this place where I realized like I needed to simplify, but I don't have to be perfectionistic about how I simplify. If I am getting rid of things that I don't need and I am not feeling overwhelmed when I need to clean, right? I think that that's a pretty good marker of how I'm doing in my minimalism and simplicity journey, right? So for example, I talked about the books that I like to leave out around my house. Every once in a while, usually once a week, maybe every couple of weeks. Sometimes it really honestly depends on if we have people coming over or how I'm feeling or something, but I will go around my house and I will take 30 minutes to 60 minutes and I will just pick everything up and give everything a nice wipe down. And that is usually enough to get my house feeling pretty good. Like I've done cleaning videos here where that like that's not the case for the entire house. Like sometimes my kitchen gets away from me, sometimes my closet gets away from me, sometimes the bathroom gets away from me. But for the most part, like the main areas of the house that I'm using, those stay fairly well ordered, fairly tidy, fairly clean, because I don't have an overwhelming number of things in them to keep track of and clean when it is time to clean. And so for me, that's what I want. I want a life where I can read the books that I want to read and cuddle up on the couch and not have to worry about how my house looks all the time. It doesn't need to be a showcase. I want, to use my furniture and use the things that I own. But I also use that as a gauge. Like if it's taking me way too long to clean up, one of the questions I have to ask myself is this because I have too much stuff? And oftentimes it is. Or if there's an area that I feel like is just getting out of control way, way faster than it needs to all the time, I have to ask myself, like, is this because I use it all the time and I need a better system? Or is this because there's too much stuff? And usually for me, the answer is that I have too much stuff and I need to declutter some things. A really good example of this, I think, is my pot holders area. So I don't love where my pot holders are right now. They are kind of out in the open on a shelf on top of my ovens. But when I went through and reorganized my spices, which I actually made a video about, so I'll link to that in the cards, I looked at what I had and I was like, these pot holders are always just messy and I don't put them back where they belong. And what I realized was I felt like I didn't really have space to put them all away. I didn't feel like they really fit. And so I had to look around and I had to go, okay, why aren't these fitting? And I found a pair of pot holders that I never used. That was a different shape from the rest of them. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start by decluttering these because I don't use them. I don't need them. And I'm going to see how much of a difference that makes, right? It might not make a huge difference, but it might. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, it made a huge difference. Like I suddenly had enough space for the pot holders that I actually use and the trivets that I actually use, and I was able to put them there. I think I also took some of the things that were in the pot holder stack and I put them with the dishcloths because that's how I actually wanted to use them. So that helped as well. But now I know where my pot holders go. There's enough space for them. I'm not constantly having to like shove them in, and it does make the space look neater. Would I prefer that they were in a drawer or a cabinet or something? Like, yeah, I would. But this is what it is for now, and decluttering really helped. And that relates to the next thing that minimalism has taught me, which is that having fewer things requires less upkeep from you for those things. And so I really, really love this because this is something that I think about a lot, is like how my energy is doing, how my mental health is doing. how much effort and attention I have to give to, the things that are really important to me in life, and also the things that like maybe are less important but still need to be done, like cleaning my house. I've realized like more and more, the more things that I get rid of and the more comfortable I am having fewer things, the less time it takes me to not just find things, because there's fewer places to look, there's fewer things for things to get lost behind, but also like upkeep those things. If I'm not worrying about having like a fully stocked pantry all of the time, that means that I have more space and mental energy to make sure that I always have, the basics in my kitchen. In my home and my closet and my life, it's very similar. As long as I am able to say, okay, like there are things that are not really worth the energy that it takes to own them or mess with them, then I am saving myself so much effort, so much time, so much energy that I would be devoting trying to fit something into my life space-wise that doesn't fit. And by the way, I do think that this is something that applies to all areas of your life. It's not going to just apply to your possessions. I feel like that applies to our schedules. I feel like that applies to just like the way that we go throughout life, like not taking on too much, so that we can really devote enough time to the things that are super important to us or that we really need to have in our lives. And I do think that like when you have fewer things and you start having fewer things and you feel the relief of not having to take care of so many things, that leads to a couple of other lessons that I also feel like I've been learning recently, which is, first of all, that we have enough. I can be content. I can be happy. I can do the things that I need to do because we have enough. I don't have to worry about like what I need to buy next or like if I'm falling short or falling behind, because we have enough. We have clothing, we have food, we have a roof over our heads, and we have love for each other. And we also have a lot of things that we like to do that make us happy, and that we have the time and supplies and money to do. And that's enough. A related lesson I think that took me a minute to learn is that less does not equal boring. And this one is hard because I think that in our culture especially, people do feel like the less you have, the more boring that you are. And so, if you're happy sitting in on a Friday night and reading a book, maybe people might feel like that's boring. When I worked in like a more corporate environment, it was not a super formal corporate environment, so I'll start with that. But I just remember like every Monday we would have these team-wide meetings or leadership team meetings or whatever. And my boss would start off the meeting by saying like, oh, what did everybody do over the weekend? And very rarely, except for the weekend that I went and got engaged, very rarely did I really have anything to contribute to that thing. I wasn't going and doing something crazy every weekend. And it was really interesting. I think that was the first time that I just observed like people are living on the weekends in order to be able to brag about what they did during the week. I don't think it's always that obvious, but I think we're just sort of hardwired that way to feel like, oh man, like the people who do more and have more and are more, like they're the interesting ones. And if I'm not that way, then I'm boring. If I'm not always, flying off to a new vacation or going to a game or a concert or, doing something super risky, then people are going to be bored with me and my life is going to be boring and like, what a waste. And, take this with a grain of salt, because I don't think that being interesting has ever really been near the top of my priorities list, except maybe when I felt social pressure to be interesting. Take this from somebody who enjoys her boring life. If you enjoy it, that's enough. Having less is not boring. It's beautiful because it gives you the opportunity to spend time doing the things that you actually enjoy doing. It gives you the opportunity to spend money on the things that you actually enjoy doing, or save your money so that you can do the things that you actually enjoy. Having less is actually the key to doing the things that make you happy. And the things that make you happy do not have to wow anyone else or make them be super impressed with you. They can just make you happy, and that is enough. And then finally, and I did talk about this a little bit in a short before, so I'll link to that in the cards in case you're interested in checking that out. But I do feel like one of the lessons that I've been learning most recently from minimalism is that there's beauty in simplicity. And I'm not, again, talking about the aesthetic interiors, although I think those are beautiful too. I'm talking about how in our lives, when we have a limited amount of options to work with that we have put on ourselves, it's not that like, we don't have the means to go out and buy more things or the ability to go out and do more things. It's where we have restricted our life in a way that makes sense, makes it easier for us to navigate, makes it more like fulfilling and contented. When we have consciously chosen to craft our lives into what we want them to be, and we have chosen the things and the activities and the people that we want to be in our lives, and we are living out those lives. There's so much beauty in that. And I think I just keep drawing the parallels to art. So I'm sorry if you're not like an art person, but like, I think that if you are looking at a piece of art where the artist really understands how every single color that they chose fits in with the rest of the colors, it doesn't really matter like what the subject of that painting is, you are going to enjoy it. It's going to look beautiful. Whereas like you could have somebody who picked a really great subject, but they're just like throwing all the paint at it, and maybe you don't even recognize what it is, or you don't enjoy it because the colors are jarring. I think there's a place for that kind of art in art. I love art, and I love the different kinds of self-expression and the way it makes you think. But when you are talking about the only life that you have, do you want to live the kind of life where everything works together and it makes sense and it's beautiful, and the way that you live makes the purpose of your life beautiful? Or do you want to live in a very haphazard way where like maybe you have a purpose, maybe you have things that you're going after, but nobody recognizes it because to them it just looks like a bunch of different brightly colored and like non-meshing paint splatters? I think that most of us are like raised to live that second way. We're raised to go after everything all at once and to not make any decisions. But if you really can make choices with your possessions, with your time, with your goals, with systems, friends, whatever, that show like, hey, like I am living intentionally. I'm trying to work toward becoming a certain kind of person. I'm trying to work toward a certain type of purpose in my life. That there's a beauty in that that cannot really be matched. So yeah, that's really what minimalism has taught me, is teaching me at this stage in my life. Oh, and actually I did have one more lesson that minimalism has taught me in my life. It's that simplicity is the key to eliminating overstimulation. But there's so many parts to that one, and I really wanted to be able to take my time with it. So I made an entire other video where I talked about that. So you can check that out here. Thank you so much for watching. And I would love to hear your thoughts on what minimalism has taught you, or any like resources that have really opened your eyes on life and minimalism. Please leave those in the comments, and I will talk to you soon.